you very much, John Roberts. We're in the Valley of the Sun. We like cactus, we like palm trees, and we are in the right place. At the Phoenix International Raceway, it is time for the first of two NASCAR Nationwide Series practices. It's overcast here in Phoenix. Cool temperatures this weekend, but little chance of rain here at PIR. Now, Kyle Busch was penalized 25 points earlier this week for an unapproved weight. However, he still has a lead of 247 points over second place Carl Edwards. And good morning, everybody. So glad you're with us here in Phoenix. Steve Burns, Larry McReynolds, and Jeff Hammond. And Larry, really, the clinching scenario for Kyle Busch, if he finishes 7th or better here on Saturday, regardless of what any other driver does, he is the 2009 NASCAR Nationwide Series champion.
Yeah, he'll actually get the trophy, and of course, if he finishes 18th or better and his starter works next week at Homestead, he'll clinch certainly as soon as that race starts. But the thing about Kyle Busch, you know his mentality. I hope that Wendy Venturini or Bob Dillner doesn't go ask him about finishing 7th or better, because that guy, no matter what, from Daytona to Homestead, is about winning. And I believe after watching him last week at Texas, he is still on a mission of trying to become the first driver in NASCAR history to win all 3 series at one track on one weekend. And I guarantee you, just like it came that close last week at Texas, 3 laps in the Cup race, this is a place, when you look at his record in all 3 series, that he could do it right here.
And you talk about a place he could come to. Phoenix could not be a better racetrack, I think, for him, because with me, this is a racer's racetrack. It's great for the crew chiefs. They get an opportunity to work on race cars. They can change shocks. They can change the sway bars. They can change the shock springs, let me say, and the weight of the car, and make a difference in the race car. And the other good thing about it is the race car driver himself can make such a big difference here. Don't overdrive the corner. A 1 mile racetrack, but it's got a lot of character. I think it brings out the talent that Kyle Busch exudes each and every week, and it'll be real exciting to see what he kind of has up his sleeve to be able to complete that task. Again, Larry, you talk about how close he came a week ago. He wants to try to get that done, but he's also got some challengers in that situation. Let's don't rule out a guy like Kevin Harvick. He runs extremely well here at Phoenix, and he's also one of the guys doing triple duty along with the 26 car.
Kevin
Conway right there. He's also doing it this weekend, or attempting to do it. I know that Kevin should be able to make the race here today, and he made the truck race, so that's looking good for him. So I definitely think we're going to have a great battle between those 3 guys. Here's one of the guys that we're talking about, Kevin Conway in the 26 car.
Yeah, he's actually attempted to make his very first NASCAR Camping World Truck Series start here at Phoenix, as well as trying to qualify for the Sprint Cup Series race as a teammate to Bobby Labonte.
Also want to mention, we talked about Kyle Busch, a 2-time winner here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series at this tricky 1 mile racetrack. And Jeff, you talked about it. What I love about Phoenix, besides the scenery, this racetrack has so much character. It's got a dog leg on the backstretch, and as you said, it's a racer's racetrack.
And it's the kind of place that, you can get into trouble real quick, but at the same time, man, I think it's great that, aerodynamics are important, but really it's all about what that guy does with the steering wheel. He has the ability to find a different line. He has the ability to get off the throttle early, let the car rotate through the center of the corner, and jump back in it and make it happen. I like this type of a racetrack. It reminds me of Rockingham. It reminds me of Wilkesboro, Martinsville, Richmond. It's a racer's racetrack where, again, it goes back to some good side-by-side, door-beaten type of style of racing. It comes out here at Phoenix, and I think it's great. It's the second race to the end of the season. These guys can really kind of like let it all hang out.
You know what's interesting? We've only had 9 cars on the racetrack as we watch James Boucher making his second start in this #1 car. Had a decent run last week at Texas, finished 11th. But I think we're not going to see the racetrack just flooded with race cars. It's a lot like the schedule at Texas last week. These guys have 2 practices, well over 2.5 hours. And talking to some of the crew chiefs, yeah, they'd love to be out there, maybe even doing a little testing. But just remember, as we pointed out last week, you only have a set amount of tires to work with today and tomorrow for qualifying in the race, and you don't want to just sit here and burn tires up in practice.
But one thing I do like right now, we take here, look at the 32 car being driven this week by Reed Sorensen. The track conditions themselves, Larry, it's going to be a really good weekend. It's not going to be real hot all 3 days. As far as all 3 series, I think the track conditions are going to be very, very compatible from what they practice at to what they're going to race at tomorrow. Even though we start at 2:30 in the afternoon, that's not supposed to be real hot and sunny, so like we normally see here at Phoenix. So I think it'll be a great weekend for these guys when they're out on the track. Track conditions are going to be pretty much constant.
Let's take a look at today's menu. This practice is 1 hour and 50 minutes. We'll have a second practice for you. Truck Series qualifying. And, of course, don't forget, it's 7:30 Eastern, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, Lucas Oil 150, and Trackside Live. Speed's coverage of NASCAR nationwide practice from Phoenix is brought to you by Copart.com, an online auto auction where you control the price you want to pay. Go to Copart.com today. Great shot of this Phoenix International Raceway. You see the dog leg there in the back stretch with the Australia Mountains. And with that, we go to the garage. Hey, what's going on, man? You're in the shot, Steve. That guy was in the shot, Wendy.
He's watching out for rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
What the
Rattlesnake
heck?
Hill.
Good morning, gentlemen. Well, here we are, Nationwide Garage here at Phoenix, and a lot of the cars in the top of the points are sitting here in the garage
Guys, I believe
area.
Wendy's giving us
course.
Yeah, she is.
Wendy.
There she is.
Yeah, can
Wendy.
you hear me now?
We are
Oh,
trained
good.
broadcast professionals. I'm going to start all over and throw it back to you. How about that?
Well, good morning.
All right.
Good morning. I could hear myself. You guys couldn't hear me. I don't know. Well, here in the Nationwide Garage area at Phoenix, the guys that are top end points are sitting here in the garage area, and that is because they're letting that rubber get off the racetrack from the USAC cars last night. Now, Kyle Busch and his crew chief, Jason Radcliffe, they come into this event obviously as the points leader, obviously minus 25 points from the penalty that they were assessed last week, but nonetheless, they're in good spirits here. Kyle is in the hauler right now talking to his crew chief, Jason Radcliffe, and just taking it easy, letting this rubber get off the racetrack from the USAC cars. And I do want to tell a quick story about them hunting this week. Kyle Busch, Jason Radcliffe, they went hunting in Texas. And I know Jeff Hammond would appreciate this quick story just to get their psyche in preparation for these final 2 races. They went deer hunting, and actually Kyle got a Hawaiian sheep. Apparently it's something big in hunting. I know nothing about it. Jeff Hammond can comment on that later. Let's head over to Bob Dillner.
Over here right now, everybody playing the patient game down here. You guys talked about it in the booth. You see David Reagan pulling out right now in his discount tire Ford. He told me, I'm just itching to get on the racetrack. But Dan Stillman, his crew chief, said, hey, let's take it easy. We got plenty of time. Nearly 3 hours of practice here today at Phoenix International Raceway for the Nationwide Series. You can see Matt Kens's car with the number 16 here. Nobody in it just yet because Matt and this team are waiting things out. Several different factors are what the crew chiefs tell me. Number 1, you only have 6 sets of tires to use for this entire weekend. Number 2, temperature, a little bit cool right now. They are expecting it to warm up just a little bit. But number 3, and possibly most of all, they want to get rubber buildup on that racetrack to get an accurate representation of what this car is going to feel like on this racetrack, guys.
Bob, we've only had 22 drivers on track. As you see, David Reagan, a 2-time winner this season.
You know, one thing that you do have to make sure that you do for this 200-lap race tomorrow, it's a fairly short race. A lot of crew chiefs are already thinking that we will probably do this race on possibly only 2 pit stops. So I guess the moral of the story, you have to have that car pretty spot on when you go to qualify tomorrow for the impound procedure, because you know in that race you're not going to have a ton of opportunity or a number of opportunities to adjust on that race car.
I'm waiting on Hammond to explain the hunting.
I want to know why there's a Hawaiian sheep in Texas. That's the only thing I want to know.
Same reason they allowed Larry Max into Texas. They're special.
Okay.
Okay.
But why
How
do
did
they
he
call
get there?
Yeah, why are they called Hawaiian?
It's a long way from Hawaii to Texas.
And why is that a big trophy?
It's like a lot of different things in those ranches down there. They bring in what they call exotics. You can actually hunt African game in Texas. There are a lot of ranches down there now that specialize in not only whitetail hunting, but they've also transported such animals as sheep, Dall-type sheep, elk, other kind of African game.
Watusi cattle?
Watusi cattle, whatever you want to call it right there. I'm glad you know about those things.
I saw him at the Lazy 5 Ranch in Mooresville, North Carolina.
But I think what is good, it's good that a lot like his brother Kurt, Kyle's becoming a sportsman and having an opportunity to spend some time with these guys doing something away from the racetrack, whether it's playing golf or, you know, racing, you know, airplanes like Juan Pablo does.
Yep.
They need an outlet every now and then to do something different.
You know, Steve, you talked about David Reagan in this 6 car with his 2 wins. You know, he's running a limited schedule. This car runs the full schedule, but David's had a pretty solid year. He finished 6th here in the spring. He finished 8th at Texas. In fact, in his 18 starts, he has 14 top finishes in 2009. And remember, this is the 2nd race for the crew chief swap over at Roush Fenway. Dan Stillman moving over from the 60 to the 6. And in fact, David Reagan just went to the top of the practice chart. Of course, Mike Kelly now over there working with Carl Edwards.
So say it's a good time to do something like that. Their sponsor, Discount Tire, is swapping over to Penske next year. But this is their home base here at Phoenix, so they got a lot of fans in the stand this weekend pulling for that 6th car.
Matt Kenseth has made his way to his race car. David Reagan, the quickest. 19-year-old James Busher is 2nd. Tonight, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series powers into Phoenix, where Ron Hornaday is still haunted by the disastrous memories of last year. He sets his sights on a 4th career championship. The NASCAR Camping World Truck Series live tonight at 7:30 Eastern.
The quiet before the storm right there, guys. I see a little bit of work being done on the 51 truck. And I believe Rowdy Bush drives that truck. And you talked about Ron Hornaday. That's who he got into contact with last year. And they roughed each other up last week in Texas. I wonder if that's going to kind of carry over here at Phoenix.
Jeff, it's good news, bad news for Denny Hamlin in that number 20 GameStop car. He is the quickest, but he is also real loose.
Gets down in the middle of that corner, and she just kind of stepped out on him, but he did a nice job of kind of catching it.
Well, Wendy Super Mario had his hands full.
Yeah, he became super driver real quick. Of course, his spotter said, "You loose out there?" And he said, "Yeah, 10-4. His spotter, of course, is Curtis Markham from the Cup side as well, spotting over here in the Nationwide Garage for Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin ran 3 laps, a 27.62, fastest so far in this Nationwide practice. He's been 2 free rolling. They're under the hood just checking on the engine and making some slight adjustments and working on the track bar. And he'll get back out there, but he feels really good so far. They also are going to cut this practice early for them later on today because he wants to get out to the Cup garage. They're going to make a mock qualifying run earlier than most of the other cars, so don't be surprised if he stays on the top of the chart most of this practice session. When he makes that mock qualifying run, it's going to be earlier today than later than most cars.
You know, I was listening to what Wendy said about Curtis Markham being the spotter. You know what, Larry, we don't a lot of times talk about this, but with drivers like Denny Hamlin, they a lot of times, they like to bring their spotter to whatever series they're running in and use him because they like that consistency and knowing exactly what goes on. Here's the guys at the top of the board right there, all up around the outside of the racetrack right there, the spotters area. But if you'll notice, there are a lot of drivers that kind of like have their own personal spotters, and whenever they go to another place to race, they take them right along with them. It's kind of like their helmet. They don't want to change it.
A number 1 example is Jeff Dickerson. Whatever Kyle Busch is racing in, whether it's trucks, Nationwide, or Cup, Jeff Dickerson is spotting. Mentioning spotters here, we just showed them. Very unusual location for the spotters here. They're not above the main grandstand at the front straightaway, and I've spotted here, and it's tough because you're right in the middle of turn 1 and 2. You can't clear a car getting into turn 3 because they're driving away from you. You almost can't clear a car coming off turn 4 because they're coming straight towards you.
Guys, Mike Bliss is at the top of the timing and scoring charts right now. He is just a tick quicker than Denny Hamlin. Speaking of Hamlin, Wendy mentioned Curtis Markham. He's a former NASCAR Busch Series driver, and I tell you what, being a driver doesn't make him a great spotter, but he had a lot of success as a driver, and if you've ever had the opportunity to listen to him, he is a sharp, sharp guy.
And this is what I'm talking about right here, Jeff. This camera is right up there in the location of the spotters, and it's just something they have to adapt to. It's almost like they have to get into a rhythm in practice just like the drivers.
Well, if we get our cameraman, this car going off into turn 3 right now, it's kind of difficult to see where he is, but that's exactly what we're looking at here as far as you're a spotter as he follows him off of turn.
And we can't zoom in like that either as a spotter.
Yeah, Jason Allgaier right there in the number 12 car, but as he comes around this racetrack, if we can stay with him, really good coming into 1 through 2, really easy for you to spot there, easy to clear him, know exactly what's going on, and even help him out coming down the back straightaway. But again, as you go back toward the end of turn 3, very difficult for us to be able to see as spotters to be able to clear him and know what's going on with his race car. So these guys are really I think, doing extra effort this weekend to try to make sure they keep their cars safe.
Here, just a little bit
well,
more
I'm sure you folks can see the racetrack getting busier now. 34 drivers have been on the racetrack, and let's go back to Bob Dillon.
Well, some problem for the 66 team of Stephen Wallace. You see somebody inside the passenger side of the car right there. They're changing out the ignition panel, and the reason why they're doing this, I just spoke to Steve, and he said the car just won't get up to speed. We did like 2 laps, but it feels like it's really bogging down. He said he's had this trouble about 4 or 5 times this year. So this team is going to work. They're going to change that ignition panel, and then underneath the hood of this race car, they're changing all sorts of stuff. The spark plugs, the spark plug wires, the distributor cap, as well as, I'm sorry, I'm taking a look in there right now, guys. The carburetor as well is being changed. You can see Steve Wallace right there. He's very disappointed. Just spoke to him. He's like, you know, this has happened so much to us, and it's going to really kind of slow our progress down today. But all sorts of problems going on for Stephen Wallace here under the hood or in the electrical system of the car. He's 7th in points right now.
Well, he's sitting there talking to Trip Bruce, the crew chief on the car. You see inside the car, they did have the distributor cap off. They're going to change all those wires. But the good thing about it is, Larry, back in our day, it was a lot harder to change all those ignition components. The way NASCAR is mandated, everything is really much more accessible. They can take that whole panel out. Again, we're taking a look at the distributor cap. That's the top of the distributor cap. Brand new wires. They'll put a brand new set of wires on this thing. There comes the ignition panel out. They'll go get a spare and put it back in and replace it. There you can see he's already got it inside the car. They'll replace it. They can do all this. Steve, what's really fortunate about it, it can all be done in probably about 10 or 15 minutes.
And if you were testing, you'd love to just change one thing at a time out to where you could figure out what the problem. When you're here practicing, getting ready to qualify and race, the heck with it. We don't care what it is. We can figure out later. Let's change everything that way we know we've covered it all.
A lot of action on the track, a lot of action in the garage area. We'll be back with more practice from Phoenix.
By the way, from Hawaii to Dallas, Texas is almost 3,800 miles. Long way for that Jeep to come.
Still don't know how they get here. Hey, join us here in Phoenix for our Friday night house party, otherwise known as Trackside. Ryan Newman and David Rudiman will join us at 10:30 Eastern. NASCAR on Speed. Be there.
Rudy. Oh, that's right. Wrong movie.
It's all right.
Wrong Rudy.
Our Copart track description, we've talked about it a lot. There are the exact numbers. It's flat, it's unusual, and we like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's treated like a short track, but the thing that makes it so unique is the 2 ends are totally different from each other.
Well, Jeff and Larry have talked about this being a racer's race track where the driver can help the crew chief, and hopefully that's a 2-way street. Let's listen to what Brendan Gaughan had to say moments ago to his team.
With the rear end 3 and 4, just that flat corner, same thing. I go in, you drive it kind of straight in the corner, it dives up to the right front, it never hits the spring, I don't feel that coil bind push, but the rear just gives me a little bit too hard of a rotation in the center. I'd like it to be just a little less harsh. 10 4.
So how do we fix that up, boys?
Well, what I think he's trying to tell Dale Ferguson, he drives it in straight and he starts to rotate the car. It never really hits on the right front, but all of a sudden when he's waiting for it to kind of load up and to turn off the right front, I think it's landing on the right rear, sitting down a little bit too hard, and kind of making the car get where he can't get back to the throttle. So he's looking for Dale and those guys to get a little bit more up on the right front, make it a little more secure, but at the same time, he wants that car when it does rotate not to jump out from underneath him, settle in there just a little bit easier so he can get back to the throttle. Did I describe that?
Yeah, in this track here, a lot like a short track, the driver almost has to control the entrance. You carry a tremendous amount of speed because these straightaways are so long. Where you really have to be focused and good here, especially in 3 and 4. 3 and 4 almost reminds me of the turn 3 at Pocono. It goes forever and ever and ever, and it's very flat. You have to get your car to turn, but the real issue is making sure it turns good off of turn 2 because you run out of racetrack, and it turns good and doesn't get loose off turn 4 because that dictates the speed down these long straightaways.
Also want to mention Carl Edwards, who's also very good here. He is now the quickest. He's in a Ford. His fast time is a 27.47, 131.04 miles per hour. But again, in the garage. 2747 is the number they're all looking at.
And I know all the focus is on Kyle Busch, and rightly so, trying to win his very first top NASCAR Series championship. But you mentioned Carl Edwards. That's going to be a battle that I think that's going to go down to the wire at Homestead next week, is Carl Edwards and Brad Keselowski. By virtue of Brad getting another top 5 finish at Texas, he is now only 20 points behind Carl Edwards for the second spot.
John West Townley in the 09 car. This has not been a good racetrack for Townley. Seconds ago, very loose.
And that almost looked like a loose under braking about the time he went to the brake pedal.
Wasn't it Townley that had trouble here a year ago coming off 4?
Trucks and Nationwide. Yep.
That team is no longer with their crew chief, Brad Parrott. They went separate ways this week.
Yeah, Ben Gable has taken over for these last 2 races. Ben's dad, George, is a top-notch engine builder over there at the Roush Yates shop. Now, we talked about the penalty from the 18 car at Texas, this 09 car, and honestly, it was just a mistake that was made by this 09 car.
Into the corner, just broke free right there getting in. As soon as I'm out of the gas and I'm turning off in the corner, and it just, broke free getting in right there, and just had to chase up the racetrack.
And that's exactly what we saw.
Good job of saving there. It will work on more. So still, what changes did that help anywhere, hurt anywhere? Felt better. I mean, it was, for the
Anyhow, back to the 09, the penalty for the 09 car. In the impound procedure, one of the things you can do after qualifying under NASCAR's guidance is adjust the track bar. Well, the problem, when they went to adjust the track bar, it wouldn't move. So a crew member without the permission from NASCAR crawled underneath the car with 2 wrenches and tried to loosen the bolt. NASCAR deemed that as an unapproved adjustment, and for that reason they fined Brad Parrott, who was the crew chief at Texas, $5,000. Also, they held John West Townley for 3 laps on pit road at the start of the race.
We're on board with Jason Leffler. He is 17th overall right now. Racetrack has been busy. 44 of 47 drivers. Whoa, hang on, Jason.
Yeah, wait a minute. Let me go back to pit road.
He'll head to the garage. We'll head to break.
Scott, fix this, will you?
Back here in Phoenix, Arizona, the Phoenix International Raceway. You see a lot of teams, drivers and crew chiefs trying to sort out their race cars. We're 31 minutes into this practice schedule for 1 hour and 15 minutes. Now, just moments ago, in fact, going to break, we showed you Jason Leffler in the 38. We were on board with him. There's what it looked like. That back end really comes around.
Well, honestly, I think the front gave first, Steve. It looked like all of a sudden he got in there and he was trying to make a turn in, and you'll see the front end. He gets down here like this, and the bottom right there. All of a sudden the front end kind of starts up, and it's like pitch catch. Whoa! Let me go down pit road here. This thing is a handful.
Yeah, because he wasn't back to the throttle. It wasn't like it was a loose under throttle situation.
And the thing about this guy, Jason Leffler, he was racing here last night. He sat on the pole, finished ninth.
Let's go back to Bob.
Actually, guys, he raced in 2 races here last night, finished top 10 in both of those races in the USAC cars. But Jason Leffler came over the radio after that wiggle and said, boys, something's wrong. Something's amiss on this car, and we got to figure it out. Now, Hollywood, you said the front end of the car, and it did look like that from the video, how it got down on the bump stops, but Jason really thinks it has to do with the rear end of the car just kind of coming loose. He says this car is just wicked loose. It's just kind of snapping around on me. They had already changed the left rear spring on this car to give him a little bit more bite from the center on off. They plan on changing the right rear spring right now, but basically they're regrouping. They said, let's get the car up on scales right now. Let's check out the cross. Let's check out where all the weights are, and then we will go back to the drawing board. So right now, Jason Leffler, you can see it on the racetrack, and you can see it on his face here in the garage area too. He's not too pleased with this race car.
Well, Bob, I tell you right now, again, I could be dead wrong. And the reason why I said the front was he was going into the center of the corner. As these cars start to travel, and all of a sudden they get down to where they kind of like hit their stops, their stops, whatever you want to call it. That's where it looked to me like the car really started getting ugly, and it might be as it makes this finally lands in the middle of the corner, it's not transferring good to the rear. So I'm real curious from your viewpoint as you watch them make these changes, what they do work on and how it affects him as you go back out on the racetrack, because he definitely had his hands full.
But Jeff, and I want to go back to what we talked about just a moment ago as we watched Kyle Busch. Tony Stewart has referred to Phoenix as his home away from home, because for guys like Jason Leffler, Mike Bliss, Tony Stewart, Ken Schrader even, they've raced open wheel cars here for many, many years. They had 2 races last night, and that's why we've talked about the open wheel cars are much, much lighter.
Oh, much lighter. They got a lot more tires to put in the racetrack. A lot of things that make it, I mean, a fun place for those guys to come and race. And you know, with his experience, and even with his experience, it may take Jason a lap or 2 to kind of get that out of his system. And I think he will, and I think Scott Zipadelli will make the necessary changes to make him happy, because this is really a good racetrack for Jason Leffler. I mean, I might want to go to the point, it's a great racetrack for Jason Leffler. Yeah. So you need to take full advantage of a racetrack that he knows, he's confident on, and because this may be his opportunity to not only beat Kyle Busch, but to get that number 38 car to victory lane this year.
Yeah, I think running in other series, all you really learn is just the characteristics of the racetracks, maybe where the bumps are, where the dips are. A car like the 2 cars like he was driving last night, you probably even run a different crew with those racetracks, with those cars.
Jeff mentioned Reed Sorensen driving this car for Braun Racing. Reed, one other start with that team this year, finished 2nd at Gateway, and right now he is 12th overall in that Toyota.
I'll tell you right now, these guys are really starting to kind of like make a lot of noise as far as Todd Braun's concerned. Looking at 2010, his operation looking to grow. They seem like they're getting stronger, moving to that new shop over there in Talbot Point, Mooresville, North Carolina. A lot of things happening. Really happy for Todd Braun. Saw him again a week ago with Jason Leffler in Texas, having a big dinner for the folks from Great Clips. So hopefully everything will come together, and he'll continue to grow his organization.
On NASCAR Race Hub just the last week, I believe it was, they announced that Brian Scott is going to drive a fourth car.
Yeah, when I look at Todd Braun, to me it's the bright light in the Nationwide Series. Is, you know, he's not a Sprint Cup Series affiliated owner, but yet he's looking at running now a 4th car. And you see major sponsors on his car every single week. To me, that's a bright light down there in that Nationwide Series garage.
Speaking of bright lights, how about Bob Dillner?
Oh, well, thank you so much, Steve Burns. Appreciate it. I don't know if you saw that coming off of turn number 4 just a second ago by the 32 car. A big old wiggle by Reed Sorensen. The car is a little bit loose, but here's what Reed is really struggling to deal with in this car. You can see that wiggle there, right there once again. There's so many drivers in these cars for the 32 and the 10 and so forth this year. Sometimes they're not comfortable inside the car. And Reed says, I think the steering wheel is a little bit too small. And he said, in between practices, I would like to actually change it to a little bigger wheel, because coming off the corner, my hands are trying to catch up to what I want the car to do. So right now, that's what Reed Sorensen is struggling with just a little bit in this practice session, is actually the size of the wheel being a little bit too small for his liking.
Yeah, Reed has made 4 starts for Braun Racing, but only 1 in this 32 car. The other 3 starts was in the 10 car, and then Reed did drive the 1 car 2 or 3 times.
Carl Edwards still the quickest. The only 2 drivers yet to practice, Morgan Shepherd in the 89 and Alex Tagliani in the 81. Stay with us here at PIR.
Welcome back to Phoenix International Raceway, where nationwide practice is underway for the able-bodied Labor 200. Brad Keselowski is happy with his race car right now, but it is a handful. He said, we're good. I will say that. He's 11th in this practice session so far in the 10 laps that he's run. But here's the thing. He's a little free from the center off. He said he needed more rear side bite from that center off. He said he really needs to be easy on the gas, and that's where he's hurting on the speed. He doesn't have the arc that he needs. You heard him just say right there, he doesn't have the grip that he needs. He needs to arc it, especially into turns 3 and 4. He said where he's arcing it, it's not doing what he wants it to do. He tries to arc it, but he about busts the race car, he said. So it's a handful for Brad Keselowski. He also wanted to compare himself to Carl Edwards. Of course, they're battling for points, the big picture. He said Carl is so good here at Phoenix. What does he do that makes him so fast? That's the conversation Brad Keselowski's having on the radio this morning. So a lot of things that we're listening and taking in from driver Brad Keselowski.
Well, I think Roush Fenway across the board, they've got a pretty good package at this racetrack because they've won 6 races here in the Nationwide Series with different drivers.
Well, guys, let's go on board with James Bush here. We'll get a really good idea of how unique this racetrack is.
Yeah, I think this shot here tells you a lot about the characteristics. Down the back straightaway, has the dog leg in it, up against the wall. This is where the driver has to acclimate himself to roll out early. You'll see a lot of them clip the apron. James didn't do it, but I noticed that Brad Keselowski was clipping the apron on the exit of turn 4 a while ago. There's a little bit of grip down there, Jeff.
There is some grip down there. And again, you know, everybody, we talked about it earlier, a driver's racetrack. They have the options to kind of pick where they want to run. Now, right now, he's following the 62 car, Brendan Gaughan. Let's see how Brendan does around here as well as with James. Because James may be kind of going to school on Brendan because Brendan does have some experience. You see the front end of that car kind of break loose going in, slides up the racetrack. Now, Brendan picks it back up, is able to get off the corner. But you saw that there was almost like another groove up there, Steve. You can come off that corner higher than you would anticipate, but that's not really the desired line. You really want to try to keep it down low. Through 1 and 2 now, I think you'll see a lot of guys start running higher. Right now, there's going to be a lot of pressure put on James by that number 20 car as he's trying to get around him. I guess he says, well, enough's enough. I'm going to bring it in. James Busher keeps on going, so I guess he's going to make a long run here. Here's the 18 of Kyle Busch, currently 5th quickest in this practice.
You could see him right there down in turn 2, had both left side wheels down below the flat there, getting a little bit of grip, and I bet you he'll do the same thing. He did it just as he turned off in the corner, and I bet he'll almost do it, not quite right there on the exit of 4. You'll see him, especially just as they turn in and on the exit, get down there on that flat.
22 top 3 finishes for Kyle Busch this season. 8 wins. He's finished second 11 times, third 3 times. As we mentioned earlier, 2 wins here at Phoenix for Kyle Busch in the Nationwide Series.
That's right, with Jason Leffler in his 38 cars. One of you guys mentioned a while ago, this has been a good racetrack for Jason. He finished second here in the spring race. Now remember, the last time we saw him on the racetrack, he was sideways loose right here in 3 and 4. Scott Zipadelli and that group, they went to work on it. Let's see if it rides a little better for him now. Down into turn 1 and 2. He never did get down on the apron there. But the car lunges against the wall on the exit of turn 2.
Yeah, you know, when I'm telling you the car's doing it, it keeps doing it.
He's still not happy with that race car. And Larry, you talk about being a good racetrack, finishing second here. He's finished here second twice, once in 2000 and also second in April. But he's also sat on the pole in 2000 as well as in 2006. So good little racetrack for him if they can get the car the way he wants it.
Mike Bliss is another guy who's raced here a lot in open wheel competition. He is second quick to Carl Edwards' quick lap for Bliss is a 27.54. Carl Edwards is going to get out and talk about that race car. No, he's going back out.
Yeah, he's only made 1 run of 4 laps. Now he's ready to go to work.
We'll cover it when we come back to Phoenix International. When you dream, do you dream in speed? Introducing the Speed Dream Ride. You'll see new shows, old favorites, and have the chance to win an experience you never dreamed possible. The Speed Dream Ride coming soon, presented by Castrol Edge. Find out more at speeddreamride.com. Flag flies in support of Jimmy Johnson as he tries to nail down his 4th consecutive championship. We look at Carl Edwards, who is, in fact, back out on the racetrack and is completing his 5th lap of practice. He's followed by Mike Bliss, Denny Hamlin, Matt Kenseth, Kyle Busch, now David Reagan up into the top 6.
Carl's got a couple of poles here, including the spring race. He's got 2 wins, but had all types of issues in the spring race back in April. Ended up finishing 33rd.
2790.
We mentioned earlier this will be the 2nd race with his new crew chief Mike Kelly that moved over from the 6 car.
Hey guys, we're going to stay here on board with the 60 car Carl Edwards. And one of the things that's interesting about this racetrack, and Darrell Walter pointed out to me just a minute ago in a text, go down the back straightaway. Notice how it's kind of like you got a hump. It goes up right here in the middle, and all of a sudden kind of like crests, and then all of a sudden it rolls back down into turn 3. Another one of the challenges to this racetrack is it's not a perfectly flat racetrack by any stretch of imagination. It's almost like a little roller coaster ride, and that can make the car light in a transition as it goes off that little rise back down into there.
So you're saying you got another text from Franklin, Tennessee?
Another text from Franklin, Tennessee.
Not quite lunchtime over there yet.
He's doing well. He's up on the chip already like we are and ready to get her done.
Drinking his Maxwell House coffee.
See, Darrell, I gave you credit right there. That was a good call right there on your part. As we watch inside the number 60 cars, it looks like I don't think Carl is quite happy with that race car the way he's working the wheel right there, boys.
Again, this is only his 2nd time on the racetrack. And, you know, we keep talking about Kyle Busch's numbers, and they are what they are. You know, the man, you know, has over a 250-point lead roughly, close to it, over Carl Edwards. But when you look at Carl Edwards, forget all the other numbers, but 33 races, 28 top 10 finishes for the 60 car. I think that just puts a period on how solid and good that 18 car has been all year.
But it's like I said a minute ago, though, Larry, it's hard to beat 22 top 3 finishes.
Yeah. And the laps he's led. The laps he led at Texas alone in the 3 Series was unbelievable.
He's now led, I think it's over 2,600 laps. Yep, 26.25 for Kyle Busch.
But guys, you know what's so interesting, I think, about that is people say, well, that's not good, and you know that. Why is it like that way? I think because of the competition level and the excellence that Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards bring to this sport as far as raising the level, you might say, I think it's making everybody else have to step up that much more. And if you can run with these guys, I mean, look at the competition. Look how much better we're going to get as far as racing and what goes on each and every week. I mean, these guys are putting it all out each and every day.
Well, Larry's made the point several times in this 2009 season about how well the Braun cars have fared. You know, being an independent team, not aligned with the Cup team, and they've been extremely competitive.
They have been, and again, it's going to make them raise their game, just like we talk about Brad Keselowski. Championship numbers, but yet he's 3rd in the points. And so it's like, if you're going to win a championship in any of the big 3 series, you've got to be good or better than good.
You know, when I look at Carl Edwards' fast time of a 27.47 and looking at Kyle Busch is actually the track record holder here that he set back in November of 2004 at a 26.90. Knowing that 60 car is probably in race trim, I would say if conditions are right in the morning and we carry that qualifying session, that track record that's been sitting for 5 years could be in jeopardy.
It's actually supposed to be a little cooler tomorrow.
I would say we very well could flirt with that track record.
Jason Ratcliffe.
You know what? I am happy for Jason Ratcliffe. You know, you've got to be happy for Kyle Busch. He's looking at trying to sew up his very first top NASCAR championship. But Jason Ratcliffe is just, he's a good racer. You know, he was up there with the group out of Owensboro, Kentucky for a number of years. And happy to see that Jason Ratcliffe probably is going to win his first championship crew chief as a crew chief.
Got 15 drivers doing double duty here. Nationwide Series and the Cup Series. Sun peeks out a little bit into the garage. Don't mark our cameras up, dude. Man had a magic marker on our camera. Closing in on an hour of this 1 hour and 50-minute practice. Take a look at the best 5-lap averages. Mike Bliss second quick to Carl Edwards, but quicker in 5-lap averages.
Matt Kenseth, he's 4th quickest right now. Steve, he's run a total of 21 laps so far in his practice.
Larry, he's one of 6 drivers who have won here in this series, also including Kyle Busch. We mentioned he's won twice, as has Carl Edwards, Clint Boyer, Kevin Harvick, and Scott Wimmer, also winners here at Phoenix in the Nationwide Series. And this week, the 81 car being driven by an open-wheel star, Alex Tagliani, 37 years old, from Montreal. Raced in kart between 2000 and 2007. Got a win at Elkhart Lake in 2004. Also has competed in 6 IRL races this season.
And you know, you go back to Montreal, he drove this car. He had a top 10 finish coming, maybe even a top 5, until he got caught up in one of those last lap melees that they had.
You talking about the water sport race they had out of Montreal? All the rain and everything was going on.
Was that this past year? Did it end up finishing in the rain too? I believe
sure they had a heck of a storm.
Sure did. That's why I say watching it, it was more like, you know, who was going to slip and slide the least to wind up winning the race. Because if you remember, Marcus Ambrose had that race pretty much won until the end of the deal.
Carl got him on the last lap.
On the last corner. Last corner of the deal right there. Watching Brad Keselowski making a move under the 61 car.
It's Jason Bowles.
Yep.
Wendy.
Yeah, Brad Keselowski's back on the racetrack after a long time in the garage area. He was spinning out loose the last time we talked about him on the racetrack. So Tony Uri Sr., the crew chief, came in, put the car on scales. It was still a little bit hairy before this run out there, so we're going to try and watch Brad see if he's much happier with this race car, since he was about to spin out most of this practice session so far, and see what kind of changes and how they have helped Brad Keselowski.
Larry, I was just looking at Brad Keselowski's finishes, and you know, we've talked a lot in the last month or so about the championship caliber seasons that Keselowski and Carl Edwards have had. Keselowski, I just counted 15 straight finishes of 9th or better coming into this race.
And that's why he has closed in on Carl Edwards within 20 points. But boys, if I take missing this weekend, I'll probably be hanging out down around the 88 Nationwide Series hauler, because Brad's special guest this weekend is GoDaddy girl and LPGA golfer Anna Rawson. She's going to be hanging out down there.
Well, you don't say.
Want to meet Anna.
A little name dropping going on there. I think that's going to get you in the door a little easier or something, because you're talking about it on TV.
Up to anything right now.
I'm just saying.
I thought you were going to say Danica Patrick was down there.
No. Not yet.
Haven't had a Danica side yet, right?
Not yet.
They're still in negotiation.
But you know, talking about Keselowski and his 88 bunch, what would have happened if they could have gotten off the mark a little stronger in the early part of the season?
Well, we talked about it on trackside when he was on. They had a terrible first 5 or 6 races.
And it really, I think, just put them behind the 8 ball a little bit, but they've done a great job as far as rallying back.
Yeah, Jeff, he started the season 22nd at Daytona, then 27th in Fontana, California, 27th in Vegas, and 12th at Bristol.
And he'll tell you, hit everything but the lottery in those first 4 races.
On board with Justin Allgaier, let's take a look at our rookie standings in the Nationwide Series. Brendan Gaughan catching up to Justin Allgaier, but Larry, you've got a good handle on this. It really, I believe it's your 15 best finish.
16 in Nationwide Series. So, you know, honestly, if Justin or Brendan, what it takes really is top 10 finishes to make a difference, because not only do you get the points for being the top finishing rookie, is if you finish 10th, you get an additional bonus points. 9th, 2. Obviously, if you win the race, not only you get the most points for being the top finishing rookie, but you get 10 bonus points. The only way these numbers would move if Justin Allgaier or Brendan Gaughan betters one of their other top 16 finishes of 2009.
Bob, what's the latest with Justin Allgaier?
Right now he's struggling just a little bit, Steve. This practice session has been very difficult because that car has been skipping across the corners of this racetrack in the front end, so they've been having some trouble. They change all sorts of stuff on the front end, spring shocks, you name it. But not only is he battling for the Rookie of the Year title, he's battling to stay in the top 5 in points. 5th in points right now. Had a horrific day last week, but he's really looking forward to Phoenix. Said he really liked this track when he came here earlier this year, so they're hoping for a good run, but that car is not agreeing with Justin Allgaier.
Yeah, Bob, Mike Bliss, who has done it by virtue of driving several cars, is only 13 points behind Justin Allgaier for the top 5 in the points.
And why is that important, guys?
They only will actually have the top 5 in the Nationwide Series on the stage at the banquets, my understanding.
That's the way I understand it also. So it's a big thing for the sponsors and the team to make that top 5.
Not to mention a little coin difference between 5th and 6th, I think.
Just a little bit, Larry, just a little bit. Could make a little bit difference of what kind of Christmas gifts you can buy.
I bet he's going to be able to buy a lot of Christmas gifts.
I'd say so. Back with Kyle Busch and company at Phoenix right after this.
Welcome back to NASCAR Nationwide Series practice at Phoenix International Raceway. Currently 9th on the board is Clint Boyer, but Clint, you are done for this practice session. How come, and how good is your race car?
Well, we have a lot of practice. You know, more importantly, that second practice when we get the rubber from the Cup cars on the track. It'll be the one that you need to fine-tune your race car on. Just needed a brand new race car. Needed to make sure the Holiday and Chevrolet, nothing was going to fall off of it. Nothing crazy was going to happen. Get some laps under her belt, and then we'll go practice and hopefully fine-tune it for the race tomorrow. The car is pretty good. Hats off to the guys who really worked hard trying to get this car, up to par, and it's a huge step in the right direction down here in the Nationwide shop. All these guys have been working their tails off, and like I said, Holiday and Express Chevrolets, it's been good so far.
This is one of those type of RCR racetracks. You have a win here in the Nationwide Series. How are things looking on the other side of the Cup Series?
Well, they've been working. Everybody at RCR has been working hard, trying to get things turned around. And, here as of late, we're running a lot better. We're starting to see, Jeff, Kevin, Casey, all of us, starting to run up front where we're used to running and capable of running. So, really proud of everybody back at the shop. And, their hard work is certainly not going unnoticed. And, we're excited about these last 2 races, hopefully trying to get RCR their first win for the season and get things ended on the right foot. That's the most important thing, is going into the off season, at least with a pep in our step and, anxious to get things started again at Daytona.
Things are looking up here at RCR. Wendy?
Thanks, Bob. It's the meeting of the minds here with the Joe Gibbs Racing Nationwide team. We have driver Denny Hamlin. Kyle Busch was just in this group. Crew chiefs Jason Radcliffe and Doug Hewitt, the new crew chief here on the 20 Nationwide team. You even see the team engineer from the Cup side, Mike Wheeler, with the FedEx Racing uniform. He's the team engineer for Denny Hamlin on the Cup side. There's a lot of going over notes, going over the paperwork from this practice session. They've come to the consensus that this track is really losing grip. The sun has popped out since we started Nationwide practice. You saw a lot of hand motions between Denny and Kyle as they compared the notes and how their cars felt here in the Nationwide garage and how the track is changing so much in the short hour that we've had in practice. We still have another hour to go, but nonetheless, these guys have climbed out of their car and really going over some strong notes between these 2 crew chiefs and 2 drivers here in the Nationwide side.
Well, there's no question. I think the next practice is going to be a little closer to conditions. The sun keeps popping in and out. You can see 69 degrees, but more than the temperature itself, it's the heat index. It's when that sun comes out and starts beating down on the racetrack, that's when the track really starts to lose grip.
The high today expected to be about 75. The high on Sunday in the upper 60s, and the good news, no threat of rain at all on Sunday. Just 20% chance today and tomorrow.
We've been coming here since 1988 with the Cup cars, and I can only remember one time that we actually saw a little bit of rain. In fact, it rained short in the race. I think it was either in 1999 or 2000. But I wanted to talk about Richard Childress Racing in the Nationwide Series. Yeah, they've won 2 races this year with this 29 car and Clint Boyer. But when you think about it, the last 8 seasons, 2001 to 2008, Richard Childress Racing, they have 5 championships in the Nationwide Series, either driver or owner. In fact, the last 3 years, in 2006, they won the Nationwide Series championship, driver with Kevin Harvick. In 2007, this 29 team won the owner's championship. And of course, last year, Clint Boyer won the driver's championship. This will be the first year in several years that Richard Childress won't be represented at the head table in some shape, form, or fashion.
9 different drivers have won for RCR in the Nationwide Series. On board with the 19-year-old James Buescher. And Larry said last week, Buescher's going to be in that car full-time next year for James Finch.
One thing that's kind of interesting, and Larry, you've got a young son coming up. James Buescher in this organization, along with Turner, he also drove in the Truck Series, Turner Group. They've been incorporating a driver simulator, which is pretty unique. I looked at it the other day, called the Blue Tiger. And they say that that's really has helped this young man get acclimated. And we've talked a lot about guys doing, you know, different types of video games to get acclimated to the track. But this is one of those things where it really gives you an opportunity to simulate the banking, the loads, and some of the bumps in the racetrack. Great program, and I think it's really helped this kid's learning curve as he comes to different racetracks that he hasn't ever seen before.
Bob Dillner.
James Boucher reporting the car very, very tight right now. 29 laps on the record books during this practice session. And remember, guys, he can put a lot of laps on this car because as a rookie, they get an extra set of tires over what everybody else does from a sophomore on up. So they're trying to dial in this car, but a little tight right now for James Boucher.
Yeah, he actually made his very first Nationwide Series start here, James Boucher, in the spring race of 2008. We're looking at Scott Wimmer here in the 40 car. Talked to this group yesterday. This is the same car that he qualified second and finished 7th at Memphis with a few weeks ago. And talking to that group, and I totally agree with this, you could pretty much come straight here from Memphis with a setup very close and probably only have to fine tune on it.
And just don't forget, Scott has had a pretty good success here at Phoenix too. He's been on the outside pole before back in 07, but he also has a win here in 2002. So he's not too much of a slouch when it comes to his flat track racing.
Here's a trivia question for you, Steve.
Whip it on me.
When Scott Wimmer won here, who was his crew chief?
Booty Barker.
Booty Barker.
Okay, I got one for you. What time is NASCAR Performance on?
7 p.m. Eastern time Saturday night, and while you're drinking your coffee before church, 11 a.m. Eastern Sunday morning.
Now, NASCAR on Speed is always on with NASCAR on Speed Broadband, a free super site for the hardcore fan. Get the best of NASCAR on Speed plus exclusive videos you can't get anywhere else. Log on now to the video section of speedtv.com or NASCAR.com. 1 hour, 10 minutes into this almost 2-hour practice. Steve Wallace in the 66. Get a kind of a hair-raising moment seconds ago. Down in turns 3 and 4. Let's take a look at what happened.
He's down in that corner, starts to pick the throttle up, and just like a lot of cars we've seen so far, just kind of gets a little bit on the free side.
Well, I would say probably the good thing about the 66 car, it may not be driving like he'd like it, but based on all the changes we watched him making earlier, at least maybe it's running like they want it to.
Stephen Wallace, 21st overall, and Bob Dillner updating us that all the ignition problems that they encountered early in this practice have been cleared up.
You know, we start talking about this almost every year in the Nationwide Series as he drives beneath it's Ken Butler III there in that 23 car.
Whoa.
That's playing it to me a little too close for practice.
Man. And Steven's car really wasn't that much under. He kind of slid it off in there.
For what I was going to say, about this time of year with only 2 races to go, we talk about this a lot in the Nationwide Series, is you look at the top 10 in points. The number of guys that are in the top 10 that still have not been to victory lane in 2009. You look at Jason Leffler, Justin Allgaier, Steve Wallace, Jason Keller, Brendan Gaughan, Mike Lynette. We actually only have about 4 drivers in the top 10 that's won races in 2009.
Guys, take a look at that 23 car. He's got damage to the front fender of the Butler car on the left front. It looks like the 66 and him did get together.
I was going to say it's probably black paint on it.
You know, take a look here as they get ready to go off into turn 1. And Steven cuts in front of him and just slides up and clips that left front fender. You see the damage now done to Ken Butler's number 23. And Larry, to me, what really would frustrate me, I know he might be a little bit upset with the 23 car. This is practice. But he ran the risk, at least in my opinion, Steven did, of wrecking his own car because as soon as he passed him, he went down the back straightaway and came into pit road.
Yeah, I don't blame the 23 car on that. I blame the 66 car. Again, there's no sense in being that aggressive in a practice session with 2 cars. 2 cars. Back off and let him go on and then finish your practice run.
I mean, look at the back bumper. The rear bumper, you see the damage to the front end, the left front, but the rear bumper tells you this is a rookie, guys. He's trying to get lap times and trying to figure this racetrack out. And you go out there and start messing around with him, you're looking to get you not only yourself wrecked, but you could wreck him also.
Well, I would hope they'll bring the 23 car in, because you're not learning anything right now, because I will guarantee you with that much damage on that right front fender, even at this 1 mile track, she's not driving the same.
Well, again, I was going to point out, that's what happens to a rookie, because a veteran, when you make that kind of contact, he'd have come down pit road and looked his car over. But clearly you can see that is not what you call minor damage to the 23 car, especially for a practice run.
Yeah, they've run the most laps of anybody in this practice with Ken Butler, 44 laps so far.
Larry, you were talking about range shortened races. It was 1998 when Rusty Wallace won here.
Okay.
The reason I remember is we were doing that race for the old Nashville network, TNN. We got real wet.
I remember one time we came out here and it rained like that, and places all but flooded. We couldn't get in.
Oh, it was
here.
a heck of a storm.
Taking a look right there at Rudy. Excuse me, I keep getting carried away with that.
Wrong
David
movie.
Ruderman
Wrong movie.
in the number 10 car.
You know, the one question that I have locked and ready to ask him tonight on trackside?
What's that?
Is why will Michael Waltrip not give him any speaking parts in any of the commercials? Now, my answer would be because it's a Waltrip.
David came in to do NASCAR Race Hub a week ago, and I said, look, you used to be a nice guy. You were very humble. You're just mad because on trackside one time we pointed out that you bought a 30-year-old horse for Michael Waltrip. You're bitter about it. Let it go. And he goes, yeah, I am bitter. And he said, I also had to buy another horse.
I would say he was right on the verge of that the minute he bought that one.
Oh, man.
Taking a look at Stephen Wallace's number 66. Bob, what's going on there?
Well, very little damage to his right rear where he met up with the 23's left front fender. But I tell you what, Stephen Wallace, listening to him on the radio right now, he's a frustrated camper here. He does not like this race car. He says, you know what, it turns down into the corner really well, but it doesn't get up off the way I want it. So we got to do something, boys, is what he just told the crew. So you can just tell the emotion in his voice during this practice session. He's not too happy.
Does it remind you of his father?
That's a good question, and just a little bit.
Okay.
They've got about 30 minutes in this practice session to sort through it. They'll get a little bit of a break, and then 50 more minutes. That'll be it until qualifying.
In all fairness right there, I will say, Steve, Rusty would probably help him figure it out maybe a little bit quicker than maybe Steven is right now. But he did get excited also.
Yes, he did. Carl Edwards still quickest. Make your plans now for the 2010 Daytona 500 and purchase a specially priced Speed Trackside Tavern ticket package. You get a Daytona Super Stretch ticket and exclusive admission to the Speed Trackside Tavern. For more details, go to speedtv.com, keyword promo. Larry Mack, don't worry, be happy.
I'm just sitting here trying to calculate the number of days to the 2010 Daytona 500.
Figured you would know.
I did a couple of weeks ago.
You did.
I had to put my best man on that. I'll get back to you.
On board with Trevor Bayne in the 99 car for Michael Waltrip Racing.
Well, let me ask you this then, Larry. If you knew a couple of weeks ago, can you not take
Do
that
the math.
time and subtract 14 days and get what we're looking for?
I said I knew a couple of weeks ago. I didn't say I remembered from a couple of weeks ago.
You know, I have that problem every now and then.
I think it's called age.
Bob Dillner, Trevor Bayne, 24th overall right now.
And Trevor Bayne has been struggling with this car, Steve, during this practice session. They came here and started off with an experimental setup, is what Trevor Bayne said, something that Michael Waltrip ran here over the last year or so. He didn't like that, so they put David Ruderman's setup on the race car right now. He's much more happy with that particular setup, said it's a lot more stable. It doesn't get as hard onto the stops in the corner. So right now he said the nose could get down just a little bit more, but Trevor Bayne a lot more happy with the David Ruderman setup than the Michael Waltrip setup.
Jerry Baxter, the crew chief, veteran crew chief for a young driver.
And oh, by the way, less than 100 days, 93 days until the 2010 Daytona 500.
You did the math, didn't you?
I did.
Awesome.
Well, I know we have 17 days left in this month. There's 62 days in the month of December and January, and the 500 is on the 14th of February, so it didn't really take long to figure.
You know what's happening this 14th of February in the 500 running?
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
No, and I will not be your Valentine.
Don't worry, I want to ask. I got to find somebody a little sweeter than you.
Well, there's always Chris Myers.
I said sweeter than Chris.
See, Mike Lynette right now 27th overall in his Toyota.
And Michael has finally cracked the top 10 in the Nationwide Series points. Still looking, though, for his first top 5 finish of the year.
Carl Edwards the quickest. He has 17 laps on the board.
All 47 cars practice. The least amount of laps is by Mark Green, who's only run 3 laps. He is 20th quickest. And as I mentioned earlier, unless someone has crept up on me, it looks like to me with 30 minutes to go that Ken Butler still run the most at 44 laps.
No correction on that 23 car. He's now up to 46 laps.
He is up to 46 laps, so he's been back out on the racetrack.
Josh Wise, one of the guys who raced here last night. He finished 17th in one of those USAC events. Right now, Wise just 43rd overall in his Chevrolet.
This team, they ran Texas last week. They plan on racing here in Homestead. It looks like they possibly may have about a 25 race schedule for 2010 in place for Josh.
Just got word that he drove Carl Edwards' Silver Crown car last night.
I think he and Carl are pretty good buddies. Got a good sponsor on the side of that car right there, Macy's. I'm sure they're looking forward to the holiday season.
But they're going to have to get to work, because with 47 cars here, we know that 4 cars will not make the show, and the 4 slowest of the go-or-go homers, Daryl Haar, Josh Weiss, Ladd Cook, and Chris Lawson right now at the bottom of the charts.
Here's our open wheel ace, Alex Tagliani in the 81. See, he finished 26th at Montreal, but that number not indicative of how well he ran there on the road course.
Not at all.
He was very competitive.
And I was excited for that team. That team had never, I don't think they had ever had a top 5 finish. And I know they interviewed the crew chief there with just a few laps to go, and I think there were as much excitement in the pits as there probably was behind the wheel of the car.
Jason Keller is 10th overall, and you know, he's looking for a situation for next year. He will not be back with that 27 team, and told me he's not sure what his plans entail.
They sit 8th in the points, not only looking for what they're going to do in 2010, but still looking for their first top 5 finish of the year.
You know, Larry, you mentioned that a couple times. Teams looking for their first top 5 or first top 10. There's a lot of teams out there that have run in the top 10 but are having trouble getting to the top 5.
Yep.
Once again, how competitive it is that guys who normally have been able to crack that top 5, you know, finishing position.
Well, I think when you've got an 18 car and a 60 car and an 88 car, it makes it tough to crack that top 5.
Bob Dillner.
And right now, guys, Jason Keller very happy with his race car. They've been just really doing a lot of R&D during this practice session. He's 10th quick right now, and that's pretty good for this 27 team at this juncture in the practice session. But the big story this weekend, you see the Scotts on the hoods, Kleenex, Huggies. That sponsor has been part of this team for 15 years, the longest continuous running sponsor in the Nationwide Series. And after these next 2 races, actually after this weekend, because it won't be on the car, next weekend in Homestead, it's gone. It's going over to the Cup Series with Marco Zambro. So a big goodbye to Scotts here in the Nationwide Series.
All right, thank you, Bob. We'll step aside for a break here at Phoenix International. Carl Edwards, Mike Bliss still leading the way as the Cat in the Hat, Jack Roush, looks on. Glad you're with us here on Speed. Sunday NASCAR race day roars into Phoenix. Texas winner Kurt Busch joins them live. Plus, we'll break down Hendrick Motorsports' dominance in the desert. NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot live Sunday, 12:30 Eastern. Jimmy Johnson also a part of the cast.
As the wheel turn.
Let's go down to Wendy.
Well, a change of plans for the 20 car and driver Denny Hamlin here in the Nationwide side. Right now, Denny Hamlin's just in his race trim, and he's picked up quite a bit of time since he spent a lot of the time in the garage area this practice session. Now, they said he is going to run right now in this race trim, not switch over to a mock qualifying run at all today. They actually are not going to do any mock qualifying runs, and in fact, Denny Hamlin might not even be practicing the second practice session because he thinks the car's so good right now. The changes they've made have made a huge difference for Denny Hamlin. There's a possibility he will not be even getting in this race car for the second practice session after he heads over to the Cup Garage for that session.
You know, just looking at the practice chart right now, Jeff and I were looking at this during break. Look at the top 6 cars. 3 Roush Fenway cars there, the 2 Gibbs cars, and then Mike Bliss and the 11 car still hanging up there in second. Here's one of those cars that's in the top 5. Matt Kenseth in the 16 car, currently 4th.
Matt Kenseth won here November of 2006, Bob.
Well, this car was good from the onset. In fact, he turned that fast time, which has gotten him 4th quick on the charts early on. But he told his team, the more changes we make with this car, the worse it gets. Right now, he's gotten a little bit more back on track, but the car just a little bit loose coming up off. They did a camber change for this one, but how about this for a word of the day? A few runs ago, guys, Matt Kenseth told us, or told his crew, this car, we've gotten it all cattywampus. Can you define cattywampus?
Oh, yeah, out of whack. I mean, what he's trying to tell you is that they've made some adjustments where all of a sudden, instead of having all 4 tires on the racetrack, it's running around there like a 3-legged dog or something. I mean, it does not feel right to him. I've heard that term a time or two from Mr. Walsh and a couple other drivers I've worked with.
Stephen Wallace still just good enough for 21st fastest. Moments ago, going into turn 1, Stephen goes below his uncle Mike Wallace in the 0-1. It's still loose.
He has got his hands full, that 66 car. The more I watch that car, I guess I more understand his frustration right now.
Let's say that car's cattywampus.
Oh, yeah.
And even at the speed you run here, I'm sure that Uncle Mike magnified the loose conditions when he ran up behind him like that.
Oh, I'm sure it didn't help, but I really believe it's one of those deals right there where Stevens gets so frustrated that when he caught Uncle Mike, he said, I'm getting by him, I don't care what it takes, and he drove it in there a little too aggressively. And Mike may have went in there with him a little too much further than what he wanted him to, but still, his car is definitely not where it needs to be. See if his teammate looks any better, because now Brendan Gaughan, you know, he's not really been that fast. He's run 35 laps in this practice. He's 26th quickest right now. But from what he was saying earlier, unless the track warming up is really upset him, they were pretty close. I mean, he just needed to work on just a little bit right in the center so they could pick the throttle back up and be comfortable on the exit.
He had a good run here in the spring race, good solid top 10. He actually finished 7th. But I would say definitely the track is getting close to good conditions to simulate what you're going to have in the race. A lot of rubber getting down on the racetrack. The sun's out. The track's heating up. The track's losing grip. So I would say now between what we have left in this practice, which is about 20 minutes, and then the 50 minutes a little later on will be the best time to sort through your race car.
Daryl Haar in the 31 car. Car owned by Stanton Barrett. Dave Fuge is the crew chief.
Daryl is from Canada, has run in the series up there. He attempted Watkins Glen back in August, but did not qualify. But he's definitely one of those go or go home cars that's going to have to step it up, because as the practice sheet goes right now, with him being 41st, he would be one of the 4 cars that would not make the show.
Morgan Shepherd, the 67-year-old veteran, just a little quicker than Haar. Shepherd 39th overall at a 28.62.
And I talked to Morgan yesterday, and he's only run 13 laps, and he said, Larry, I have to be careful with this car in practice. I have to be careful if I make the show. And right now, on the practice sheet, he would be in the show, because this is all he has left to run here and Homestead next week. Is this one car.
The 0-1 car is driven, as we said, by Uncle Mike Wallace. Oh, sorry, the 0 car, that's Jeremy Clements. He's from Spartanburg, South Carolina.
And right now he's 37th quickest. He is a car that will have to qualify on time. He's run a total of 31 laps in this 0 car.
And Larry, watching that car on the exit of turn 2, the way it was hitting the bumps and running up the racetrack, doesn't look like it's really into the racetrack like it needs to be.
Yeah,
rolling over quite a bit.
Even though this is a fairly flat racetrack, this track has a lot of bumps. I mean, the shock package, especially in the front when you're trying to work with the thing just sitting down on those springs, becomes pretty critical.
Hey, I want to take a moment to mention some of the teams in the Nationwide Series are gathering non-perishable food items here and at their shops for a food pantry, I believe, in Lexington, North Carolina. So good job by 6, 7, 8 of the teams in the Nationwide Series.
Very good cause as we approach the holidays.
Yep. Cousin Carl's still the quickest, and Stephen Wallace is still trying to sort his car out. Stay with us here at Phoenix. The NASCAR Camping World Truck Series teams in action tonight here at Phoenix International. Ron Hornaday has his sights set on a 4th career championship. Coverage beginning with Chris Devoda tonight, 7:30 Eastern, here on Speed. You see the teams, the Camping World Truck Series teams on pit road.
Well, let's see, we're in the desert.
Yep.
Good chance, based on last night, probably a full moon. And you know what? It's Friday the 13th.
Oops.
Ought to be interesting.
Interesting? I'll tell you what's interesting.
Is Bob Dillner.
Yep.
Okay, well, how about this? The 6th car is 6th quick in this practice session. That's all I got, guys. Sorry about that. But David Reagan is looking good so far, but you're ending practice early. You must be pretty happy with how things have gone on.
Yeah, our discount tire Fords, it's pretty good. You know, certainly we're not on top of the speed charts or anything, but, you know, pretty comfortable balance. And, you know, the track gains a lot of grip as the sun goes down and it cools off, so it's very, very fast first thing in the morning. So, you know, this next practice will be very important because our race is in the afternoon. So, you know, Dan Stillman and the guys are going to fine-tune on a few things and go run my UPS car. Then I'll come back, and that second practice will be important. But, yeah, so far so good. Our car's pretty good balance.
Hey, Larry Mack, young David Reagan turns 24 this December.
Oh, okay. But I tell you, when you look at David Reagan, along with the 15 total drivers going back and forth between Nationwide and Cup, they want to be a little careful with this next Nationwide Series practice because, like David said, he's leaving that garage area. He's going to practice his Cup car. He's going to be back over there practicing that Nationwide Series car, and he has to go back and qualify that Cup car, which we know the 2 cars drive. Even though they're on the same Goodyear tire combination, they drive totally different.
Totally different. And can you remember when you were 24?
No.
Okay.
Not even remotely. I almost can't even remember when I was 44.
Jason Bowles is driving the 61 car. He's from the Camping World West Series. Matt Carter has spent some time in that car this year.
This is a car that's locked in, so they can pretty much focus on just getting Jason ready to race for this race tomorrow. You know, we've had 15 previous races here with 11 different winners, and probably a lot of our viewers would be surprised who won the very first race here. We made our first trip back in 1999 with the Nationwide Series. We've been coming here with Cup since '88. Jeff Gordon actually driving a 24 Hendrick car. We know he drove for Bill Davis, but driving a 24 Hendrick car actually won the inaugural Nationwide Series race here.
Talking about history of this racetrack, I can remember coming out here in 1982, back when we used to run the Winston West Series here after the season rode with. I actually came out here with the number 11 car that was driven by Neil Bonnet and ran second to the legendary Bobby Allison here after we finished up the season in Riverside, California.
A lot of the Cup teams would do that. It was because it was always the week after.
It was always the week after.
Tony Raines in the 34 car is 28th, and with that, we go to Wendy.
Well, thank you, Steve. Brad Keselowski out of his race car and done for this practice session. Brad, at the end of the practice, your car became more drivable, more predictable, we heard you say, but overall, you didn't seem very happy with the car.
Well, this has been a great car for us. This is 528 from Junior Motorsports, and this car won Memphis with. I don't think it's run like 8 races this year, and it hasn't finished worse than 4. So it's a pretty good car. We just got to keep working on it, keep tuning on it to make it a little better here for Phoenix. But it's been a good season. Had a lot of fun with Jordan Motorsports and this GoDaddy Chevrolet, and we'll get it right, I'm sure.
All right, what's this about your special GoDaddy guest? The guys in the booth are really excited about your guests.
Well, that's great. You know, GoDaddy has the GoDaddy Girls, which you can check out on GoDaddy.com. But she's pretty cool. She's a golfer. She showed me a few things. I can guarantee you one thing, you know, she's way better at golf than I am at racing. So she's pretty good.
All right, well, good luck on getting the good game here in the Nationwide Garage. Let's head over to Bob Dilder.
19th fast for Jason Leffler here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series practice. But Jason, we documented that you weren't happy with the race car, trying to figure things out. Did you ever get them figured out?
We're still working on it. The last couple of runs are pretty good. It's a brand new. The problem is it's not a problem, but it's a brand new TRD chassis, which we've never raced before. We haven't even tested the car, so what we're used to doing doesn't work. So we've done some stuff that to help that, and it's a good car. We just have to get our arms around it. So that's what we're working for, and we'll get the great clips Camry up front here when the time counts. And you know, we got next session. We just stop now, let our tires cool, and go through everything on the scales and make a few more changes.
Still one more practice session to go to get it right, boys.
Bob, I understand Wendy Venturini has some breaking news for us.
Hey guys, I have very bad news for you gentlemen in the booth. The guest of Brad Keselowski's, Anna Rawson, she has canceled. After the interview, he said we just found out via cell phone she had to cancel.
So I guess we'll have to go to GoDaddy.com.
Yes, you will, in order to see her. She will not be here.
And Larry, why all this sad-looking face? I mean, you know, you really had your heart set on this?
Good chances. I got to be an honest man. She probably canceled because she knew I was hunting her.
Oh, okay.
Aha!
He said that. We didn't.
Yeah. Closing minutes of NASCAR Nationwide Series practice. The magic number for Kyle Busch, 7th or better, regardless of what any other driver does. He's your 2009 NASCAR Nationwide Series champion. 247 points, the gap between Busch and second place, Carl Edwards. But Larry, as you said, Keselowski right there, nipping at Carl's heel.
Almost 2,000 points in front of 10th place Michael Annett, 1,000 in front of 4th place Jason Leffler.
Would you call that dominating?
I would say it has been. Brendan Gaughan up there. It's amazing. They talk a lot with their mouths, but they use their hands a lot too.
Here it is.
They'd crash if you tied their hands behind their back, try to get them to explain what was going on.
They couldn't explain, I don't think.
But you know what, as a crew chief, actually, I can understand better a lot of times through their hands than what I can through their mouth, if that makes any kind of sense. Because a lot of times that hand motion at least tells me something that what the car is telling back to him. That's where they get their feedback, is through that steering wheel.
On board again with Trevor Bayne, young driver from Knoxville, Tennessee.
Right now he's 24th quickest. He's run a total of 43 laps in this 99 car.
45, good lap.
That's a 28.45, which I get a feeling they've probably put maybe some fresh tires on this 99 car. His fast lap was on the 6th lap of his practice at a 28.16.
16 drivers have a sub 28-second lap.
He was even talking with his hands and no one in there to watch him but us.
I was going to say, and the thing is right now, what you got to worry about is when a driver looks up at you and tells you something like, now believe what I'm trying to tell you.
And we're getting confirmation that was still the same tires, so I agree with Jerry Baxter. That was a good lap.
Good improvement.
To have that many laps on the tires. Thanks to Bob Dillner passing that information to us.
Yeah, if he's running 28.45 on 43 lap tires, he has definitely got himself a pretty good little hot rod.
Especially with the track heating up and losing grip like it has.
All the above.
Johnny Chapman doing a nice job in the 90 car, 16th overall of 47 drivers who have been on the track.
Yeah, he's the 2nd quickest of the go-or-go homers. The fastest go-or-go homer is Paul Menard in that 98 car up in the top 10, 8th quickest.
A little less than 5 minutes remaining in this practice, Larry Mack, which means we are 133,000 minutes to the Daytona 500.
He's describing the whole race.
He's been riding that 5-hour energy.
Just 2.5 minutes left in this NASCAR Nationwide Series practice, and Larry, I'll repeat it. 133,869 minutes until the Daytona 500.
You got it, which equates to 93 days. Evidently, with just a few minutes to go in this practice, Chad Walter and Justin Allgaier decided to make a little practice qualifying run. He jumps up the 4th quickest with that 12 car.
3rd quickest, Denny Hamlin, Wendy.
Denny Hamlin done for this practice session. Denny, you were too loose than too tight. Were you able to find a middle ground, and are you skipping out the 2nd practice today?
Yeah, we're going to skip the 2nd one, but yeah, we got it better. It seemed like as soon as the sun came out and the track started heating up, we kind of lost our car there. We didn't. It seemed like the adjustments that we had at the beginning didn't work at that point, so we adjusted around it, and it seemed like we made some longer runs there towards the end, and I'm fairly happy with it. We just need to fine-tune it just a little bit.
All right, good luck with your Cup car. He's headed over there. And on this car this weekend, we wanted to add, it's the new Super Mario Brothers Wii. Add in the word new, and it comes out on Sunday.
But I think what Denny Hamlin told Wendy there falls in line with what we were talking about. I think Mike Ford and Denny Hamlin, knowing you want to qualify up front for this Cup race, because it's somewhat of a short race, 312 laps, is they don't want him driving that Nationwide Series car in between practice and qualifying with the Cup car to confuse things.
No, I think that's a really good call right there by that group. Try to keep his head a little bit more in the game for where really the big prize is this weekend. Not to say that winning with that 20 car is not, but you got to stay focused on what's going on here. Taking a look right now, the 83 car, Johnny Borneman III.
His dad's a West Coast racer. He used to help out Richard Childress when Childress would come out to the West Coast.
And their plan is to run the final 3 races, Texas here and Homestead. They were pretty happy because they've got a new Roush Yates engine in that Ford.
Blake Koch in the 05 car, and again, just closing minutes of what's been a long practice, 1 hour and 50 minutes in total.
Now, he's 24 years old, but he actually just started driving stock cars about 3 years ago because he was a dirt bike racer for a number of years. They plan on racing Homestead, but he'll actually be in that 81 car in Homestead next week.
Just 45th overall. Red and black flags are out. That means practice is over. Carl Edwards, the quickest, just 17 laps, 27:47. You see at home, 131 and change.
Good thing about that practice session, guys, even though it was kind of long, it was very uneventful. Saw a few cars get a little bit loose, but that's kind of normal here. But it's always good to be able to see these guys come out of a practice session without anybody having to worry about doing a lot of serious work or going to a backup car.
Yeah, from the time the green flag waved, we didn't see any flags until we just saw that red and that black flag.
Don't forget, we'll have the 2nd Nationwide Series practice for you later today. They'll qualify tomorrow morning.
Is that cactus or cacti?
Plural would be cacti.
Okay.
So stay with us. We'll step aside briefly. When we come back, John Roberts will get you updated.